Hey everyone, it's me, Whimsy. It is 3 in the morning here in beautiful Portland, Oregon, and I have just completed my remote view. So people had asked me to take a look at some of what's going on in 2023 here in the United States and beyond, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the visions I had in those remotes. So the first thing that I experienced when I did my remote view tonight was that I noticed there was a lot of flooding in the United States. I've talked about this in the past. It felt like you had the north and the south, and a lot of the flooding was in the southern United States, the lower United States, the southern states. So it felt like Texas again was vulnerable, Louisiana was vulnerable, Alabama, Mississippi, etc. I just felt a lot of flooding. I felt like the rivers, the Mason-Dixon line, and the rivers that separate the north and south would become very heavy with rain and snow, and this would affect the southern states more than the northern states. I also saw that we really have terrible infrastructure. It looks like we've stopped working on our infrastructure consistently since the time of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter leaves, then Reaganomics gets started. All these government agencies that oversaw protecting our infrastructure, hiring government workers with government benefits that kept the country solid, all that went away. And instead, to save money, we gave it to private companies that then took the money but didn't produce the same quality and keep up the infrastructure the way the previous system had worked. And so consequently, the southern states don't do well in 2023 because their infrastructure continues to collapse. So all the southern states are vulnerable to flooding. And because the infrastructure hasn't been kept up in the last 50 years, 50 years, it places a tremendous weight on their water systems, their grids, etc. When you look at what is the solution to fix this overwhelming problem, the solution is to go back to the way things were in the 70s and to rebuild those government agencies with government workers that have retirement plans, that have pensions, everything that people thought we could get rid of and save money. We now realize how vital that infrastructure was to creating America's infrastructure. So getting rid of all those agencies, getting rid of all those government workers, and replacing them with private corporations that did not do as good a job or any job compared to what would have happened if we had had government oversight. But it really, for me, the vision was that you had the North and you had the South, and the South literally is just underwater, struggling, and the lack of money put into maintaining the infrastructure creates further problems for them. So this is the first problem we see going forward for 2023. We have to rebuild our agencies, start rebuilding our government, and putting people back to work in those agencies to rebuild our country so that we can be like the rest of the world. The weather and its impact on a debilitating infrastructure was the main thing I took away from tonight's vision. And I also took away from tonight's vision that there really is only one solution, and that is that we have to end this push towards privatization and move back to the government overseeing these programs. The whole argument that it's communism or that it's bad if we have more government and more government oversight and more agencies and more people employed in the government overseeing this work, that this is somehow bad. We see with the rise in homelessness and all the other problems that are happening in this country that actually it all starts to fall apart after Reagan and this push towards privatization. This was the first vision, and I tried to look at it as objectively as I could, and I simply, without the structure that existed there prior to 1980-81, I don't see a solution. The second thing I focused on had to do with the politics that are happening in the United States right now. And specifically, I focused on George Santos out of New York. A lot of people are concerned because he lied in order to win a district. And is he going to be seated in Congress? What kind of actions can be taken to deal with the fact that he basically lied in order to win his district? It felt to me like this was a rising storm. It felt to me like the GOP was not going to do anything if there was no outcry. And so the pressure is mounting. If he is seated in Congress, this could escalate within 3 to 4 months after he is seated in Congress to the point where he is pushed out. People had asked me if I see Kevin McCarthy winning the House leadership position. Probably yes, but it's going to be very hard for him to maintain that position because so many people who are Republicans could potentially be driven out either through prosecution or criminal charges, and that makes his leadership position very tentative at best. So I think George Santos, if he's lucky, may survive 3 to 4 months in Congress before his legal problems mount. He's also under some type of criminal investigation for money he has acquired, possibly through foreign means. The infrastructure is now there through the FBI, the Justice Department, etc. They now have a lot more information about how these money schemes with foreign money took place. They're in a much better position than they were, say, 10 years ago when they were first finding out about these money schemes. And so I don't see it taking forever for people to find out where George Santos's money is coming from. I give it maybe 3 to 4 months that he can survive Congress before the backlash is so intense they have no choice but to ask him to resign. And the last remote I did had to do with the governor of Texas, Abbott, and the immigration crisis at the southern borders with Texas, California. The fact that Abbott sent asylum seekers, I believe it was 100 asylum seekers, were dropped off in 19-degree temperatures outside of the vice president's home, Vice President Harris. So when I went into that remote, my first question for the Justice Department was, is this legal? Can he legally do this? And the response I heard from the Justice Department was absolutely not. So it's not legal. So he's not legally allowed to do this. Santos is not legally allowed to do this. However, it felt to me, and I don't exactly understand the legal reasons for this, but it seems to me that the Justice Department was handing it over to another agency to oversee. ICE agency has to oversee. There has to be oversight from ICE and other agencies regarding how to go forward with potential prosecution against Abbott. There does appear to be something that's going to happen as a consequence of these, of doing this to asylum seekers, but it's going to go through some type of other agency. The main thing I take away from 2023 is that this is a time where everyone basically has to get in touch with reality beyond the rhetoric, the political rhetoric, beyond the crazy. And objective reality is that things are becoming increasingly difficult in Central America, politically, the environmental crisis, the crime, etc. And so there really is a crisis at the southern borders. And that's a problem that we have to address because global warming is a universal problem. So it's something that we accept, and it's something that we have to deal with going forward. What I see for 2023 is that people begin to have real conversations about real problems, bringing back the government agencies that used to exist, bringing back those agencies that can rebuild this country, which desperately needs to have its infrastructure overhauled. And that is basically what I saw regarding the weather, infrastructure, and the issues regarding immigration. Last, I took a look at Russia and Putin, and the feeling I had there was that I think it's becoming increasingly obvious to Putin that he cannot win this war with Ukraine. He cannot break Germany. As I had said in the previous remotes, when I put myself in the shoes of Vladimir Putin, I am very aware of the power of Germany. I'm very aware of its power in the EU. I'm very aware of the fact that the West and the United States has a vested interest in Germany. And I'm very aware of the fact that we could see a renewed buildup of U.S. troops in Germany. As you know, under Trump, there was an attempt to remove U.S. troops from Germany, remove our missiles and defense systems from Germany, but we could see all of that being rebuilt again, and it simply is too much for Putin to deal with, and so consequently he has to back down. Also, I don't think he's going to get enough support from Iran because Iran is facing civil war themselves. So on that note, we can go ahead and do cards in the future to find out how long the war will end, but I think it's becoming increasingly obvious to Putin that he has lost this war. All right, thank you everyone for listening to this quick remote. I will be back doing blitzes for 2023, hopefully I'll do them tomorrow. Anyway, so I thank you so much for listening to this remote. Be sure and share, like, and subscribe if you like this channel. And also you can reach out to me if you'd like to have your 2023 reading done as well. Be well, everyone, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.